Hi, everybody. Welcome to this discussion of the Greek Magical Papyri Tarot. As I was just saying before I started the recording, I am going to have to make it a little bit shorter than usual tonight, so I'm going to try and move through as quickly as possible so there's enough time for a question or two. I see someone else in here in the waiting room. I'm going to let them in. Let's jump in. Today I'm going to talk about the suit of cups, and I actually brought the cups from the Rider-Waite deck, and I also brought the cups from a jumbo version of the Thoth Tarot deck. Sorry, my fingernails are a little bit extra dirty today because I was doing some art. So anyway, starting with the ace. The ace in the Greek Magical Papyri Tarot, obviously, as I said before, the ace represents sort of like the beginning of things. It represents the monad, singularity. And in this particular deck, it's represented by a drinking cup, a Greek drinking cup, which is called the kylix. And it is the little words that you probably can't see that well on the screen are barbarous names from the Aphrodite vessel divination. So I felt like that was particularly appropriate. I'll just quickly show these. Like this is the Thoth Tarot deck, which I guess it probably most closely represents, although it also somewhat represents its similarity with the Rider-Waite as well. Good night, sweetheart. My daughter's going out of the room. So again, these just basically represent singularity, beginning energies. And the last zoom that I do, or one of the last zooms that I'm going to do, I'm going to show them kind of more in sequence with one another, like all the aces together, all the twos together, so we can take a look at them comparatively a little bit as well. So the two of cups is represented with two ladies kind of coming together. One of them is holding a wine jug, and one of them is holding a water jug. In the ancient world, they usually mixed the water and the wine together before a party, so that's kind of what's happening there. And it's sort of a sublimated indication of the sort of love that is often represented in the two of cups. A little bit more overtly, the talisman that's on it is a fetching love charm, where it's usually a wax dog, and he goes and fetches your lover for you if you do the spell correctly. The poem oracle at the bottom is would that such a man be called my husband. So the twos, let's just quickly show you in the Rider deck, or the Smith Waite Rider deck, whatever people are calling it these days. It shows two lovers coming together with cups. And obviously, that's indicative of the love energy. And the Crowley one I particularly like. This is one of the nicer designs in the Crowley deck. It's got two sort of fishes spewing water into two cups. Again, you still get that sort of love symbolism coming into it, but a little bit more artistic. Let's see that. Oh, there's the three. Out of order a little bit there. So the three from my deck, we have three now. We have three poetess, artisan ladies pouring the two pitchers into a third pitcher, which is the pitcher that would be containing the wine mixed together. The talisman is another love charm. This one has a little bit more of, it's an interesting love charm because it actually combines some elements of a Hecate love charm and some elements of more of like a solar Judaic Iao kind of spell. So it's got a bit of both in it. And then the versicle down below is the glorious gifts of the gods are surely not to be cast aside. So, as I said before, the twos kind of represent duality in one way or another, either coming together or moving apart, or one dominating the other. There's various ways in which two can be represented. So archetypally with the cups, we're more putting together. And the same thing with the threes, they represent sort of like a combination of forces to create a third, or two contending forces with a third to balance it out, or two contending forces with a third to make it imbalance. Those are the basic archetypal principles behind those numbers. The Crowley deck, we see three sort of grape or ruby oriented cups with the water flowing over them nicely. And in the Rider-Waite deck, we've got the three ladies, the sort of classic three ladies celebrating together. So all of those things kind of flowed into the design in one way or another. The 4, which represents more things kind of coming into a bit of a symmetrical kind of a solid pattern. We've got, this is somewhat similar. If you're doing readings with these, this will be one of like 2 or 3 cards that you're like, you have to look at it a second time to be absolutely certain you've got it. Oh, I forgot at the 3, I was going to check again, but we're all here, so that's good. This is somewhat similar to the 4 of Pentacles because it's got a lady seated, but there's a different thing going on. The ladies in this case are bringing things to the lady who's seated, as opposed to having given all of their things to the Pentacles ladies. The talisman at the top is a talisman of. I'm sorry, I'm being distracted by the fact that there's. Can you guys hear the yelling in the background? Hey guys, can you cool it in the other room? The talisman at the top is. I want to say it is a. I think it's a success one. It's like a victory charm or a one that represents kind of succeeding. And when the versicle, the Homer Oracle is, it is not possible or proper to deny your request. So the 4 of Cups in the weight deck, the Smith weight rider deck, shows a little guy who's sitting with 3 cups in front of him, and 1 cup is being brought to him by a hand in a cloud. And in this case, weight in his book kind of gives a negative connotation to this card, and he's like, this is about someone kind of being so over life that even the fairy cup is not enough to sate their desires or something along those lines. But I've always actually interpreted it slightly differently, both in this card and in the Crowley version, which I've used both for divination purposes, and I kind of see it as, since the cups represent sort of your emotional life and the sort of energy flowing through your life, and the 4 represents stability, it kind of represents to me a situation in which things are emotionally supportive for you in a way that's balanced. So that's kind of where my card's energy is coming from, with they're all bringing things to her and making her feel happy that they brought her presents. Maybe it's her birthday. That kind of energy. So the 5, in both of these decks, we see the cups are somewhat spilled over in the rider version, and in the Crowley version, for the first time, there's no water coming in the cups whatsoever. The cups are all empty, and that sort of represents the Mars energy, bringing intensity and heat to what should be a more pleasant, watery experience. So mine shows, in a similar vein to the rider version, some of the jugs have spilled over, and there's some discontent going on, some troubles are brewing. And the talisman is actually a talisman, and there's 2 talismans like this, both within the cups. I didn't even realize it at the time, but as I was finalizing things, oh wow, they're both in the cup. But this is actually a talisman that's supposed to break enchantments that are against you, or break negative magic that's been put against you. So I mean, I suppose you could consider that these ladies arguing, it may be that they've been hexed, or they've got crossed conditions happening in their party, or in their enjoyment of their night. The Homer Oracle says, "What's wrong with you that you took this wrath into your heart?" And I showed those. So the 6 of Cups, this is one that shows like a very symmetrical kind of thing. The people are all toasting each other with drinking cups, so like they've gotten past the arguing, and they've moved on to just enjoying themselves in the evening. The talisman is the stele of Aphrodite. It's a charm for success and favor and positive social interaction. So that seemed appropriate for this one, I guess. The statement is, "Of a truth, child, there's nothing really wrong with this." Now, so this has a very sort of, the symmetry is very obvious within the drawing. And I guess I was kind of, in a way, emulating. I wasn't consciously doing this. I didn't actually have these cards out at all during my creation process, but this card too has a very sort of symmetrical quality to it. There's like a nice, pleasant energy. And the rider deck, obviously, it has the sort of young couple exchanging flowers, very pleasant sort of thing. So I guess both of those cards are a little bit kind of energetically represented in the picture, although the picture looks pretty different from them. So now we get to the 7. Let's see if there's no one's in the waiting room. That's nice. I don't think I showed the 4 of cups, or did I? On this one, I don't remember. Sitting in an odd spot. Anyway. The 7 in the Crowley cup, it shows the cups are now running over, but they actually have this sort of green slimy stuff in them, and the word that he puts at the bottom, which is it's a paraphrase of the Golden Dawn's Lord of, I don't remember what it was, like force, shortened force or something like that. He calls it debauch, and he gives it the energy of sort of like people are overextending themselves. As I've mentioned before, for me, the 7s are all about sort of ambiguous circumstances. So it doesn't necessarily mean, when I'm doing a reading, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's definitely, alcohol or drug abuse going on, even though there's that sort of like undercurrent in there, in Crowley's card. In the Rider deck, it's these cups with all the different sort of fantasies and fears in them, which I think is an interesting way of representing that. But so mine actually shows the party has gotten a little bit out of hand for the cups ladies, and one of them is sort of passed out, and another one's not feeling all that well, and the rest of them are sort of dancing more erratically than most of the time. And so it represents sort of things getting out of balance with one another. The other 7s that we've gone over are the 7 of Wands, which shows sort of like a battle going on where the forces are a little bit uneven, and then the 7 of Pentacles, which shows people waiting for their sort of crops to come in. So again, it's got that sort of like, it's a transitional time, and this might, things are getting a little bit too intense. And again, this is another talisman for removing a bewitchment or a magical spell against the person. And this is one that's interesting because there's a diagram in the Greek magical papyri for this one, but it does not describe what is actually being described in the text at all. It doesn't even come close to it. And it doesn't resemble it even in the slightest. So I kind of took some elements of the original text, but then I kind of put more stuff that relates to the description in it as well. The Homer Oracle is, honey, sweet wine has the best of you, which others also. Now, that again, it's another situation where the actual phrase that's being used here, while it has a certain implication to it, it also has an ambiguity to it because there's some extra words in there that don't really quite fit in with it. So there's multiple ways in which you can interpret that if you so choose. The 8 of Cups. The 8 of Cups in the Crowley deck is somewhat related to the 7 of Cups, and it shows the cups, they're still kind of have gotten a little ooky. Some of them are broken, and the coloring of it is pretty rough, and it's very gray and looks like a storm is either passing or it's coming. And he calls this one Indolence. So the 8 of Cups in the Rider deck shows a guy kind of walking away, somewhat similar to images of sort of the philosopher going into the cave, but in this case it still has that sort of icky feel to it. The cups are a little bit weirdly aligned, and he doesn't look like he's necessarily seeking enlightenment so much as seeking shelter from something. So I often interpret that card as that there's, because the 8 has to do with sort of the intellect related to Mercury, and the cups represents the emotions again. So I usually interpret that as there's something that you're needing to look at, or something that you're needing to sort through that may be a little bit in your subconscious still. In these cards, this is actually a very similar, a common motif in Greek pottery, is having ladies sort of having a conference with one another or walking along with their pottery on their heads. So I wanted to represent it in some place because it's such a, I mean, there's a lot of them that have this kind of image, and I wanted to represent it in some way. And this seems like the card that it fit best with. So we've got sort of 7 ladies kind of interacting with each other, and an 8th lady kind of feeling left out. And again, you know, sort of that idea of she's needing to sort something out in her consciousness. This is a talisman for a revelation spell. The spell is actually quite long and complicated, and this is only one part of it. But I liked it. I wanted to include this, you know, the Tephra scarab beetle on one of the cards, and this seems appropriate to fit with this theme, I think. The statement from the home oracle is, "Where are you fleeing, turning your back like a craven in the ranks?" I'm sorry, it's very dark in here. I can't read that well. Again, this is from the Odyssey, I think, or the Iliad. I think it's from the Odyssey. So obviously, it's sort of a male-oriented statement about ranks and so forth. But obviously, you can interpret it in a little bit more of a general way. The 9 of Cups. Are we doing on time? We're doing okay. There is someone in the waiting room. I will let him in. Hello, welcome to the latecomer. Thank you for being here. We're almost through this. We'll have a question or two at the end, and then I gotta go, unfortunately. So the 9 of Cups in the Rider deck, it has there's a sort of a merchant who's in front of his wares, and he looks sort of happy. I guess the message that I usually give is the one that you're putting things together to create happiness for yourself in your material world, some way or another. In the Crowley deck, we have things kind of turning around. We had a couple bad moments where the cards were looking a bit icky, but now finally they've kind of returned to this nice flow here, and everything's sort of purple, obviously, because he's gently indicating the Sephra Yesod. But again, it sort of represents the a harmonious flow of things in one's life. And my card, I guess, sort of somewhat related to the Rider deck, but with a little bit of a different kind of a feel, because there's 9 figures in it. We have a woman who's like selling her pottery, and the other women are clamoring to get some there. Maybe they're bidding on how much it's going to be. And the talisman for it is it's a talisman. It's a business charm, basically. It's actually been sort of controversial recently on Facebook, this particular charm. But anyway, yeah, there's the baboon version of Tahuti's of Hermes, and a spell that this bit in the original version. This is meant to be a statuette, and you write this on a piece of papyrus and roll it up and stick it inside the statue. So obviously, in a 2-dimensional version, I didn't have the ability to do that, so this is the way it was represented. And the Homer oracle is, "I shall dress him in a mantle and a tunic, fine garments." So finally, we've got the 10, and this again is another. Well, I'll show them. So the ladies are back to being in a happy space where they are harmoniously once again toasting. Only there's 10 of them now instead of 6. So the 10 in the Crowley deck, we see there's a tree of life indicated in here, and the cups have become very light-filled chalices rather than just simply water cups. They've evolved into something grander, more lovely. And in the Rider deck, we see a little family, and the rainbow has all the 10 cups in it. And this card is usually considered to be a fairly positive one that indicates good things in one's life. So the talisman that goes along with this is one of 3 that aren't actually PGM things. They're actually gems from the huge number of gems from antiquity that we have that are magical. And the figure on it is Zeus of Heliopolis, and I thought he was a really interesting figure from antiquity that I wanted to include. He's actually he's a combination of a number of different things. He's got elements of sort of Serapis in him, and some other popular deities of the time, but on his stomach you can see he's actually got the heads of a bunch of other deities and other sort of mythical beasts and stuff in it, and he's got little bowls at the bottom that represent his sort of wealth and prosperity. And the verse on the side said it's basically like, may you have health and wealth and happiness. And the Homer Oracle is, I am this very man back home now and after many toils. I think that one subconsciously came to me because of this the sort of happy family that's there. So that's the cups. I'm going to open up the chat. I haven't been looking at it, so if you've been on it, I'm sorry. If anyone has any questions, I've got a couple minutes to answer questions. Then, unfortunately, like I said, I've got to end this early. So if no one has any questions, then we can send it even earlier. So, good news. I'm pretty sure that the shipment of cards is going to be arriving. I mean, it literally could be at any day now. I was trying to track it, and I couldn't figure out how to do it, but I'm pretty sure we're getting super close. I don't know if it's going to be, by the end of this week or sometime during next week, but they're getting here. Fingers crossed that nothing's going wrong. I know that there's been weirdness happening in the world. So, Brent was asking if I filmed the course videos, and yes, they're up. The course videos are all up. There's like 6 or 7 PDF documents that still need to be uploaded. Most of them are done too, so it's really close. Like within the by the end of this week, it'll be completely up. no more missing things. And he said, I promise I won't ask every week, but you won't have to because it's it's basically done. So if that's it, everybody. I look forward to talking to you next week when unfortunately we have to talk about the swords, which has has all the talismans that are negative in it, and all the all the less favorable readings that are definitely unfavorable. I mean, there's a few that are a little less than perfect in all of them, but the swords have the larger portion of those. So anyway, great to see you all. Nice to see some faces that I haven't seen in a while, and those that I've seen every single week. So thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.